Let's keep it all the way real. Do you struggle to make money from your creative works? Do you ever wonder, how am I going to turn this into a sustainable living? Are you unsure about the right steps to take to build a career and to cultivate your craft? Trust me, I've been there. I'm in there kind of now to a degree. to a degree. But look, we're going to look at some ways that some artists struggle to monetize from their creative works and how we can change that. So I just want to spill out some data points before we begin. It is reported that 70% of artists earn less than $30,000 per year from their creative works. This is from the Strategic National Arts Alumni Project. 88% of musicians struggle with financial instability, citing lack of predictable income streams. And the top 1% of artists earn 77% of streaming revenue, making it an unreliable primary income source for most people. So, as an artist, as a creative, we create, we build, we release our creative works into the world. And while we do that from our hearts, we do that from our spirit, we do that from our souls, I will be remiss to not admit that making it a sustainable career is not a goal. It is. You want to be able to live off what you produce and live off what you help people with as they listen to your works. If you're a musician, for example, if you're a fashion designer, the clothes that you create, the aesthetics that you develop, you want to be able to live and build and have a sustainable life from what you do and what you produce. So when you think about this in its totality, why do creators struggle to monetize? I'm going to give a few reasons why I believe that is the case to be true. Number one, the entire focus is on art and none is on the business. Many artists prioritize the creative process but neglect the business. There's no true, real understanding of who the target audience is, how to create a viable product to sell, product positioning, putting the product in the space and a place for the right people to consume it. And there's no clear understanding of what it means to own, manage, and operate a business. There's no standard for measuring the success to even know if you're going in the right direction. The reason why I said that, I want to pull back of the clear understanding of what it means to own and manage and operate a business. I am a firm believer of learning as you go. You can read, you can study, you could do everything in your power to get well equipped to learn how to run a business. But you don't know how to do anything or run anything until you're actually doing it, because you learn as you go. There's nuances, there's situations, there's things that come up that you won't know how to handle until your hands are in the mud, until you're operating from the front, leading people, leading by example, and operating that business. So when you have your creative works, we think about more so the artistic side of it. How does it look? How does it feel? Am I happy with it? Is it something that, I feel comfortable sharing to the public? And there's nothing wrong with that. I believe that that should be a part of the creative process. But then once it's completed, and as you're completing it, and once you're getting ready to present it to the public, we have to start thinking about, how does this operate in a business context? How does this help someone else? How does this solve someone else's problem? How do I position this product to be able to maximize to its highest potential? And there's stigmas, in the creative community that devalues monetization. And what does that do for creatives? It leads us to avoid strategies that align with revenue generation to actually build a sustainable business. We don't want to come off as off-putting. And then there's not enough time spent on what revenue generation and profitability looks like. Where do the profits come from in the creative business? That is something that we have to spend time talking about. Where does the money come from? How do we serve people? How do we generate revenue? How do we get revenue from our creative works? what are we selling? How do we sell it? And how do we position what we're selling? And then typically, and I know this from experience, I know a lot of creatives who view the business as a distraction from the creative works rather than an essential component for their success, sustainability, and career longevity. It's just one of those things that as a creative, you have to get over. You have to fall in love with learning the business and understanding it. It doesn't mean that you have to have your hands in every aspect of the business, but you need to know how does my product, which is the creative work, how does it um, operate within the context of a business to be able to position it, sell it, market it, and put it in the hands of the right people. And that's something that we have to take very seriously. On to the next point. Number 2, there's a lack of literacy in business and pricing knowledge. Many artists undervalue their work, which causes them to give lower prices for high value work. They're unaware of how to create and develop pricing structures and how to maximize and generate the most profits and value from the work. Many creatives struggle with not positioning the product to solve a larger problem that someone is willing to pay for. And then there's no clear understanding of what keeps a business sustained. So for just to put this in context, if I want to explain how you can measure the value of a business, and we're speaking mainly about profit, revenue minus expenses equal profit. Revenue is the money generated in the business. Expenses is the cost of doing that business. And then profit is the revenue minus the expenses, what the actual business is left with once everything is paid for and from the revenue. That is something that we have to have a healthy understanding of as a creative, because there are expenses in operating. This camera that I'm looking into costs money. The mic costs money. The arm stand costs money. The records behind me cost money. As a creative, I'm putting my hard-earned money and effort into these different aspects into my business to be able to sit here, talk to you, and present a video to you and add value from that regard. So we have to understand, number one, the value of investing, and then also the value of understanding how to deal with the return on that investment. So if you don't have a healthy understanding of how to even operate a business or how to keep it sustained or understanding where the money is going to come from in the business, it's going to have you struggle with how to monetize and actually how to build and scale that business. And many creatives, we don't do a good job of keeping track of our expenses properly, which leads to financial instability. We have to know the numbers. We have to know what's going on. If we don't know what's going on, if we don't know where we are in the business, then we're operating with blinders on. We're walking down paths with blindfolds on, and anything that happens to us within that business or anything that drains us in that business, we don't have an understanding on. So it's very important to be able to understand that and to be able to know that. So the next point, great art does not sell itself. While high quality and high value creative works may be subjective to most, no matter how great it is, it will not automatically attract an audience and generate a sale for us. Visibility, product positioning, and strategic marketing is essential for success. An intentional, well curated digital strategy must reflect and lead people to what we're promoting and engaging the supporters. We have to lean into the power of storytelling and build a rapport intentionally, genuinely, and with authenticity. I want to hone in on this last point. Leaning into the power of storytelling. We live in a world today where, as a creative, we connect and build with people at the soul level. So when we release our creative works and we tell a story about our creative works, people want to be able to find themselves within that story. They want to be able to connect on a human level. They want to be able to know that you are just like me within this creative process. So, leaning into the power of storytelling and talking about it in a way that leads people to understand how their problem is solved in that, that's golden. That's beauty. People connect with that. No longer can you just sit around and say, this is for sale. Buy my vinyl, buy my merch, and buy this without any context with the value and how it supports them in their lives and how they live. People want to know how they're connected to a larger theme and connected to the work. And then lastly, inconsistent branding and marketing. We have to have a strong, clear brand that can communicate the value of our work, which leaves memorable experiences of our creative works in the minds and hearts of the supporters. When the brand message isn't clear and the visual identity is disconjointed, it doesn't make sense for those to engage it. They check out. And when your digital marketing strategy has no focus, no intention, it does not lead your supporters to take clear, direct action on what you're offering, it's more likely to leave people confused. So, with your brand marketing and your messaging in reference to monetizing your creative works, we have to be clear. We have to let people know exactly what we stand for, who we are, and what this actual product means. And then also, we have to consider how people experience us. We have to consider what people say about our brand when we're not, when they engage it and they experience it. What they say about it matters because that is your brand. The way people feel, the way people engage it, what people think about it, and how they think about it in the context of themselves, that is your brand. So you want to make sure you leave a good impression. You want to make sure that you let people know how you're adding value to them and solving their problem. And you want to make sure that whatever you're presenting, whether that's an album or a fashion line or a film, you want to make sure that you're clear in communicating what this actually is and what the story of it is and what does it mean on a much larger scale. So when we think about the struggles of monetizing from our creative works, why does this continue to happen? Something that we alluded to earlier, a lack of business education. We have to continue placing more emphasis and focus on building financial stability and learning the business, the creative business. Artists tend to avoid learning about strategies to monetize from their creative works because it's not fun. The creativity is fun. Being in the studio is fun. Making the album is fun. But what does that lead to? Missed opportunities, unstable income. And I think one of the most disheartening things is it forces us to focus on other means of generating income outside of our creative practice to live a sustainable life. When we can generate a sustainable living on what we're creating now and not have to worry about those extracurricular financial resources if we don't, if we don't need to. And then another roadblock, scarcity mindset. When you don't see opportunities and solutions from your creative works, you tend to focus on issues, roadblocks, and what's getting in the way. It forces you to undermine your creative works in value, and you tend to underprice your creative works with the fear of not pushing people away. What do you believe about yourself internally, about your creative works and the value that it brings? If you're operating from a place of self-loathing, lack of self-worth, this contributes to the undermining and the undervaluing of your creative works. So when you don't operate in abundance, which is there's more than enough, and you operate in scarcity, meaning that there may not be enough, and you present a creative work to the world, people will pick up on that and sense that based on how you're speaking about it and based on how you're speaking in context to the business itself. If people get a sense of the fact that you're unsure, you're unclear, you can't really communicate the value, you get nervous when you talk about the price and how much it costs, people will tend to believe intrinsically that you don't believe this. And if you don't believe it, why should I? If you believe it has no value, why should I? If you don't know how to communicate the value in that creative work, what value does it have for me? And I can speak from experience. I remember my first vinyl project, Quesbar. I remember when I was on tour and I just got off stage and I was selling the vinyl, to the fans after the show. And someone asked me what the cost of the vinyl was. And I think that I said something around, I think I said like $15 or something. But in my mind, I really wanted to sell it for like 30. But I was like 15. And then I started saying things like, well, if please get what you can. If that's too much, let me know. And I just remember them looking at me like, what is the price? And when I named the price, I can tell they were excited to buy it, like almost in a way like, oh, this is cheap. This is a steal. Like I would have paid more if you would have asked me for more, but since it's only 15, I'll take it. And I remember how I felt in that moment. And I remember feeling like, wow, I'm really undervaluing myself. I mean, here I am. I was at a show, sold out, and I was on tour. People were there to see the show, and here I am talking about $15 if you like it, if you want to buy it. No. What is the price? What is the value? Communicate that and communicate it with confidence and let people either say, hey, I'll pay for it. Or if they say, okay, no, not for me. And that's fine because it'll be there and it'll be positioned for the people that want it and see the value in it and support it. The next thing, you want to, there's a focus on independence and no, actually, let me take that back. There's a focus on gatekeeping dependency and not on independence. Waiting solely and focusing on antiquated models of being signed by a major label or company or sponsored by an organization in order to build and develop a sustainable fan base or business, that is old school. It doesn't mean that it can't work today, but we live in an economy where direct to fan is nearly essential, and it's the barriers of entry are very low, extremely low. And we have to understand the value of that direct to fan support, that direct to consumer support. If the focus is on what everyone else isn't doing for me to be able to position my product and sell it to the world, you're already in a bad position because the tools and the resources are there. We, more than any time in human history, have the ability to enter markets and especially in the creative space, to enter markets with low barriers, very quickly, very lean. We could do a lot of testing and we can move a lot faster than most companies can move. And with having that direct to fan relationship and focusing on the independence and focusing on building your team to help you orchestrate independently instead of waiting on major corporations and labels for your approval or major companies to come in and sponsor you and approve you, that could be a hindrance. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with a major label or a company that want to sponsor your creative work, for an example, or an organization. But typically today, you have to build in order for them to come in and want to be able to support what's already built. So whether you like it or not, you have to build anyway. And you're typically going to build from a place of independence. So don't spend too much time waiting and looking for what other people can do to add value to your creative work. Start building the systems now. Start being nimble and lean now, and start testing and building and releasing your creative works now, and let them evolve as you continue to grow. And then also another roadblock is an over reliance on one income source. We must leverage how we engage our community and find income opportunities. We have to find it in community, find it in exclusivity, and tiered productization. We have to focus on relationship building and find other meaningful values of exchange. So, gathering data, emails, addresses, phone numbers, information where you can clearly reach back out to the person within your ecosystem and begin to genuinely nurture them into becoming a customer and solving their problem with your creative works. So, this goes back to when I mentioned earlier about storytelling and the value in that. Relationship and adding value typically leads to monetizing when it comes to your creative works. Because at the end of the day, people are getting their problem solved, relating to that product. And by relating to that creative product, they're also excited and they want to support and they want to build and they want to help you grow in your creative practice. But having these direct contacts, it helps you stay engaged, it helps you stay connected. Whereas that, again, if you're talking about larger entities like on a major record label or something to that degree, they have access to the data. They have access to the information. The information is theirs and they get to monetize from that information. Because if they drop you and they are no longer supporting and backing you, the data goes along with it. So having that control and having that direct relationship and support is something that cannot be undervalued. And again, struggling to monetize is not uncommon, but there is a way out. There's hundreds, if not thousands of millions of creators who are trying to figure this whole concept of monetizing from their creative works out. So you're not alone. We all struggle with this. We all have highs and lows. We all have moments where we're still trying to figure it out and position ourselves to be able to build a sustainable living from our creative practice. But just know the creative economy is thriving. So we have to prepare ourselves to monetize based on what's best suited for how we serve our audience. So next week, we'll discuss 3 ways to monetize from your creative works so you can go from trying to survive to thriving and that you can share your work to the world for them to benefit from. Man, this has been great. This has been wonderful. I hope it adds value to you. I'm thankful that you sat here and you listened to this podcast. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you create. I'm looking forward to seeing you monetize, man. I'm here right with you. Until next week, I'm Neak. Be blessed.